All right, welcome into TWIG, our weekly geekly news show that we do here live over on Twitch every Thursday morning at the new time of 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern if you want to catch us live. This is an interactive show that we do here, going through the news of the week that we consider nerdy and geeky or that you submit to us over on Discord. But we like for it to be interactive, so we don't want the chat to feel like you've got to be quiet or like you can't still interact with us. We want to still have a conversation here, so I'll try and ask questions throughout the show. If you're watching over on YouTube, first off, hi YouTube, thanks for watching. Or if you're listening over on the podcast, maybe find a YouTube feed of it so that you can go leave a comment and let us know some of the answers to your questions as you're watching through the show. With that, we're going to get started with our first segment of the show that we like to do. What did you watch or play or read in the past week? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been reading? I'll start so that we have plenty of leeway for our guests that I'll introduce. I've been watching Hell's Paradise and Heavenly Delusion, which I realize is kind of a weird dichotomy of heaven and hell. I just finished Coffee Talk 2, playing that, and now I'm starting up again Spirit of Justice Ace Attorney. We'll see if I make it through this time, but something about Ace Attorney, I do like one case at a time, and then I take big breaks. And I just started reading The Maid, which is a kind of new trending book from last year. And then I also just started reading The World According to Garp. And hoo boy, I was not prepared for that book. I thought it sounded like a goofy, like Americana. Wow. A rough start, a rough chapter to start things off. So I'm interested to see how it continues to go on. I've never read John Irving before, so maybe this is just John Irving. But let us know in the chat, what have you been watching, reading, and playing? And then I'm going to turn over to our guests. So one of the things that we like to do here on TWIG is have one of our level 2 members hop on whenever they are able to hop on. And so that is what we have today. One of our level 2 members here at Checkpoint Church, Stained Glass. So Stained, I'll let you tell everybody a bit more about yourself, and then what have you watched? What have you played? What have you read?
Yeah. I'm Stained Glass. I'm a pastor in the UMC. What have I been watching, playing, reading? I have been really watching a lot of baseball. My wife and I watch the Yankees games as much as we can. I've really been into I've been really into WWE wrestling a lot over the last few months, getting back into it from my childhood, and I've been watching way too much of that, like truly, to the point where my wife even last night was like, "Are you even enjoying this like AAA stuff?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Why are you watching?" I go, "I don't know." But so I've been doing that, and let's see, I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. My son has also been playing that, so he is trying to beat me through it. And reading, I've been reading a book called Online Jesus by Angela Craig. And yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Rock on. I know literally nothing about wrestling. I grew up with a lot of friends that definitely liked wrestling, but the only person that I know is Sting, and that is purely because on the N64 wrestling, whatever it was, that was who I like to play as, and that's really all I know. That is where my knowledge begins and where my knowledge ends. So I wish that I knew more. I always feel like it would have been a fun, fantastic thing to have gotten into as a kid, but I feel like my wrestling was Dragon Ball Z. And so I watched anime instead of wrestling, and that was like the alternative of like, if I wanted to see violence, I wanted to see anime violence for whatever reason. Whereas,
yeah, it's so ridiculous. It's ridiculous and stupid to the point of being entertaining.
Mm-hmm. With Harry Potter, did you do the whole like Pottermore thing where you linked it and all that stuff, or did you just do whatever the hat told you to in the game?
No, I did whatever the hat. I actually kind of forced myself into Slytherin because I kind of realized what answer would get me there. But yeah, no, I'm just going through it real slow without a walkthrough, and I'm really enjoying it.
Love it. All right, from the chat, it says Sneaky is playing Jedi Survivor, still working the way through that story. I'm sure that's what most people have probably been playing for the past couple weeks. Cam says finished Star Wars Visions, which is volume 2 of that show, I presume is what Cam is referring to because that just dropped over on Disney+. About to Platinum Meet Your Maker, just need the multiplayer trophies, and then ready for Zelda tomorrow. Yes, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom does release tomorrow. That is on our upcoming games list towards the end of the show. And that's pretty crazy that we're already there. Very exciting stuff. All right, well, as I said, if you're in the chat, feel free to drop what you're watching, reading, or playing, or any thoughts that you might have on any of the things that we talk about throughout the show. We're going to start off pretty heavy. We're going to start with a pretty heavy one. There has been some news from Riot Games. So some of you may recall a couple of years ago, whenever Kotaku released a class action gender discrimination lawsuit being penned against Riot Games that has continued to escalate, starting with two people that started the movement as whistleblowers in a sense, and now it has raised up to over 1,500 different claimants who are a part of this lawsuit. It's a pretty huge deal, a pretty landslide case, and I think another kind of nail in the coffin of what was 2000s gaming work culture, like gaming industry culture, that I hope we're going to continue to see the end of. For those of you that have been with us since we started TWIG, you know we've covered Activision Blizzard and the continuing progress of that lawsuit, and Riot Games is not out of hot water either with their own, but it's always good to see that there is payments being made, there is a process going through, and hopefully a future being set up and established. What thoughts did you have on that, Stain? Anything that you wanted to add? I know this is a heavy one to start off with, but I figured it's important for us as Checkpoint to do good, do no harm, and strive to grow. Those are our kind of hallmark rules that we follow based off of John Wesley's general rules. And this is an obvious example of not only how do we do no harm by setting up a future where this doesn't exist, but we also have to do good by doing what we can for the past and to not necessarily even to make up for it, but just to honor that we're being different with an offering of sorts, in this case, a financial offering of the fact that we regret and that we are moving past and that we acknowledge that we were wrong. And I think that's an important step for games industries to be making.
Oh, I agree 100% with all of that, especially for us, because gaming's important to us. We want to reduce or eliminate the harm that we do, like, the crunch culture of, working people to the bone and, things like this with discrimination, gender discrimination. That is one of the things. I'm a big World of Warcraft fan. Like I go in and out. I just was part of doing a funeral service for one of our guildies that died recently in the game. And it's been hard to continue playing it with all of the stuff going on. But I think this actually, while it's very public in the gaming sector right now and needs cleaned up absolutely in gaming, I think it points to a larger tech culture issue that I think exists, and really just culture in general, right? Like it's just a microcosm of a larger societal issue on still how we treat women in this country. Like, again, even something, I'll localize it for myself. My wife is a runner, and a month doesn't go by where she's not creeped on by somebody while she's out running. And, you take that and you just start marching it up the scale. I think the more we can expose these things and eliminate them, and, I don't have any sympathy for these companies, right? I have sympathy for the workers of the companies that are not engaging in this practice, but the reality is that sometimes exposing these things and eliminating the badness means that a company is going to go under. And I'm okay with that. But if we're going to do things like that, then we need to, as a culture or as a gaming community, try to set up guardrails for those who might fall through that are also just victims. So anyway, I could go on and on and on and on about that because I'm passionate about it. But I think it could have been more, and we need to do all that we can to root this kind of thing out, and it really support the people who are putting their lives and their livelihoods on the line to expose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we could do a whole level 2 podcast about it because which is currently sort of on hiatus. We do have another episode in the can. I just haven't had a chance to edit it. So level 2 podcast, this would be a great conversation topic to continue talking about gender norms and to continue talking about equality and discrimination and the progression of civil rights as we continue to go into history and culture and all that stuff. So there's tons of good words. There's tons of good keywords that we can hit on throughout this, but I think we've summed it up well as a means of just we're excited to see that this continues and excited to continue hopefully pushing our way forward into a better future and into a better place for all people in the not only the economic world but just in the world at large. Cool. With that, we're going to move on to our next news piece, which is one that kind of came by surprise just because we don't often hear from Team Cherry, which is the team behind Hollow Knight. But we have officially heard from Matthew Griffin, and it's not good news, Xando. I see Xando in the chat was like, whoa, what? Yeah, it's not great news. So Matthew Griffin revealed in a tweet recently that they had originally planned on releasing Silksong in the first half of 2023. However, we're coming up on a month until the first half is over. And while the game is shaping up, it's become something bigger than they expected. And so they're really wanting to continue taking time to do more and to put more into it and to make sure that it's a product that they're proud of upon release. I have two minds about this, and you might as well, Stain, so I'll be interested to hear what you think. But I, for one, am just glad that we finally heard something. I think that's been kind of the running meme, is that every single Nindy, every single Nintendo thing that has happened in the past 2 years, they've been like, Silksong win, Silksong win. And they haven't said anything. They just haven't said anything at all. So to hear from Matthew Griffin to say, yes, we have been working on it. Yes, we did have a plan. No, it did not go according to plan, but we are still working on it. We're proud of what we're creating, and it's gonna come out. You know, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them not releasing a date, and I'm fine with them acknowledging the fact that things are not going to plan. But I would have preferred a date, of course. But I guess I would rather not have a date that they miss than have a date that there's no way they're going to meet. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts? First off, did you even play Hollow Knight? Are you excited for Silksong? or just is this
I know nothing. I know nothing
culture?
about it other than it's a game I want to play. But I will say, in terms of like, I'm a big proponent of don't put a date out there unless you're sure you're going to hit it, because I think one of the most frustrating things as a gamer or a consumer of media is to hear this, like, get excited about a thing that's coming and then be told you got to wait some more. And maybe from a marketing point of view, that actually does them some good because it continues to build the hype. But eventually, like, you keep pushing things off enough after telling me it's coming, and then I just lose interest. And so I would much rather them wait until they're much more sure that it's going to happen. I think we have another piece of news later on where something has been announced for well down the road. And I was like, wow, that's bold. Because they have no idea. They really, so anyway, that's my opinion. I'm glad that there's not a date because I just hate when they miss them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is a Metroidvania with a lot of depth. I remember whenever I was playing the first Hollow Knight, I was amazed that it just kept going. Like, I kept playing and I was like, oh, I'm like 20 hours in and there's still more to do. Like, what's going on with this game? Why does it just keep going? So it's way deeper than most indies you would typically predict. And so that tells me that this is going to be a project of equal, if not greater size. And I think we have a lot to look forward to with Silksong because I think it's going to be another massive game. So if you're a fan of Hollow Knight, if you're a fan of that play style and of what that game did, I think we're going to get, at the very least, more of the same. But hopefully we'll get something that's an even better iteration of an already iconic game. The gap is obviously pretty big, 2017 to at least 2023, maybe 2024. But it's good to know that they're working on it and that they're excited about their product. And that is something that in and of itself makes me excited for whenever it does come out. It sounds like Xando's in agreement with what we're saying. Rather not have a date than be let down by delays. Excited that they're putting so much care into a follow-up of a monumental game. I totally agree. And I think that where they kind of shot themselves in the foot was even announcing that it was going to come out in the first half of 2023. They did exactly what you said, Stained, where they made this announcement, a year or so ago, two years ago, and that the scope is just so hard to know whenever you're looking out that far to know what you're even planning on doing. I'm kind of surprised. I almost wish we would get like a demo. I don't know. That culture has turned into kind of this like weird thing that some people do and some people don't, and normally it's AAAs. But I think that would be a good way of doing this, to do some sort of a demo just to like let you know that they're working on it, tease a little bit of it, and get some feelers out there. But we shall see. We shall see what happens and what comes of Hollow Knight in the future. With that, we're going to move on to our next one, which is Beetlejuice 2, which will come out in quite a while. I have a feeling this is probably the one you were talking about, Spain. Beetlejuice is another iconic movie, kind of a cult classic film starring Michael Keaton. And for some reason, they're making a second one. They think that they have enough to make a second one instead of a reboot, which I feel like would have been, I guess they did just have like a recent resurgence with the musical. So maybe that's where this energy is coming from, or just that hype of this era of movies. But we shall certainly see where this will go and what this will do. It's got Jenna Ortega tied to it, and so that's a big name to have right now, so it sure better come out sooner than later, because she's definitely in the hype wheel right now, and there's no telling how long that hype will last, whereas Michael Keaton will remain to be a major hype name. But yeah, what are your thoughts? I'm mid on Beetlejuice. I like Beetlejuice, and I like the iconography of it. I like the like power of the images and going to the like Hollywood, what's it called? What's the restaurant called? I can't remember what the restaurant is called, but whenever you go to that restaurant and you see all the like props from movies and things like that, and it's in the shape of a giant pyramid. I'll remember eventually. But whenever you go there and you see all the props, like Beetlejuice is there, and I'm like, look, Beetlejuice. And then I'm like, I'm probably not going to go watch that movie again. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think, Stain?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch it.
That's it, Zando.
I didn't know that it was. I didn't even know it was a thing. Like until I saw these show notes, and then you're right. This is the one that they're really announcing it well ahead of time. I like Beetlejuice. I always liked the movie. I think this will be something my wife would like as well. So this will probably be a date night movie for us. They're gonna get all the money from people like me, people who are not upset that they're doing. I actually would prefer this sequel, even though I have no idea what they'll do with the story. I'd rather the sequel than a remake on this. I just watched a video yesterday about remakes nobody asked for, and there was watching my wife get so angry about the idea of a live action Hunchback of Notre Dame remake, because it's like her favorite movie of all time, reminded me that we just don't need a remake of everything. Right? We can continue the story of things, but I think I'll like this. I think I'll like it. Whatever they do with it, I'm very easygoing on movies and stuff like that. So I'm sure it'll be good enough for me to go, that was worth it.
Yeah, I put down in the chat that it's supposedly going to come out September 6th, 2024. And the only confirmed cast, I think, has been Michael Keaton and Jenna Ortega, but there are definitely, like, the rumor mill is speculating, like, will Tim Burton return? Will Winona Ryder return?
I thought I saw in that article that Tim Burton was directing it.
Yeah, I think it's very much, like, heavily rumored and implied, but I don't know if you went to IMDb if it would show up, which that's a good question.
Well, that's the official source, right?
Yeah. Xando said it's like that one scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. No, thanks. We already got one. It's good.
That we've already...
Very good stuff. So, yes, that is Beetlejuice. I'll be interested to see. I think, like you said, it's a good date night movie. I'm not expecting it to rock the boat too much. I think there are two options. I think it either shows up and it's fine and it's a good date night movie, or it's a total flop and it gets memed to nothing. So we'll see what happens and what ends up going on. If they get Tim Burton, it'll be exciting at least to have another Tim Burton film. Always brings a lot of heavy imagery, along with like a Wes Anderson, who's, just they are a meme in and of themselves. So time will tell. Next up, the Nintendo Switch. I'm so confused about this news, but this is according to Bloomberg. For those of you that don't know, Nintendo has like a fiscal meeting that happens every single year at the end of the fiscal year, and whenever they have that meeting, we get a bunch of news that just drops out of nowhere. This is one of the particular ones, dropping a lot of information about how many Switches sold, what we should know about those Switches that sold, what should we know about their plans. And according to some of the sources and analysts, they believe that Nintendo is not releasing a new console for the rest of this year. So don't expect one in this fiscal year, which means we won't be getting one until April of next year. At least, after that probably. I think that there was a lot of hype that it was going to come out this like Christmas season, but I don't know. So maybe Christmas 2024, maybe summer 2024, but we will see what they decide to do with this. I think it's probably way past time for a Switch 2. I think this is their 7th year. I don't know if it's their like 6th year going into 7th year, or if it's their 7th year going into 8th year. But they've been around for quite a while, and the OLED innovated just enough to kind of get them the last little like life breath out of it. They're still selling just fine. What they're not doing as well is running. They're just not running games as well. So you can't play the AAA titles. You can still continue to play the Nintendo titles. I think what will be a big thing will be tomorrow. Tears of the Kingdom, how does it run on the Switch? Because I personally didn't actually play Breath of the Wild on the Switch first. I played it on the Wii U. And so we will see how it actually runs and how it actually does. I remember it running just fine on the Wii U, but I don't know. We'll see if it chugs really hard or if it runs it too hard or if the older models of the Switch can even handle running it. But what are your thoughts on this, Stain?
Well, this is one of those things where, like, so I'm actually in the market for a new Switch because mine broke. It's been broken for a little while, and my kids I have two Switch Lights in the house, but I really like to play it on the bigger screen. I like to dock it and all that. So I really got to get one. And Tears of the Kingdom is going to make me buy one. And so thinking about, like, I didn't realize they've been out as long as they have been, because in my brain, it's been a much shorter time period. And thinking about the possibility of a new one coming, I didn't know that we were that close to having something new. And so now there's a part of me that's like, oh, do I need to wait a little longer and just get the new one? But if it's not going to be around for a while, then I'm gonna shell out some more money, and then down the road I'll buy the new one. In terms of whether this new game will play well, I think it will. I think they know enough to know that they gotta knock that out of the park, or else they're going to do a lot of damage to what comes next. And so I don't think I think it'll be just fine. I think they'll have built it to the specs that they have. And I think Nintendo, as a first party platform releaser, I think they're smart enough to do it that way.
Yeah, they definitely know what they're doing, and they have a very strong, cohesive plan for what they're doing. So there's no time. I mean, they even said in this meeting that their goal for this year, which is their 7th year, thank you, Zando, it's not their 8th year. So this is their 7th fiscal year, and they are planning on selling 15 million units, which is a pretty hefty amount for a 7th fiscal year, even for a brand like Nintendo. I think what they're probably banking on is Tears of the Kingdom. What does get me excited about that number is maybe it means they have one more last hurrah video game, because that's a pretty high number for just Tears of the Kingdom. I know Pikmin 4, but Pikmin 4 is not going to sell that many. So it'll be I think we have one more last hurrah game for the Switch that's going to get teased here before too long. And so that kind of excites me. Maybe it'll be a new Mario to close out the season. We'll see. But I'm not putting any money on that because I wouldn't bet it. But you never know. We'll see what they actually do. I think they'll probably meet their goal of 15 million, especially with Tears of the Kingdom, but there's no real telling how things will continue to go forward. Zando says, my daughter was also born in 2017, but at the literal end of the year. I got up in arms like, my daughter isn't almost 7, but I forgot there is almost a year difference. Yes. Yeah, well, there you go. It's nice to have those, like, hallmark milestone years that our children are born to remember when video games come out. That's really funny because I'm that exact same way, Zando. My brain absolutely goes there. So that's really good. Like, I'll never forget, well, this isn't my child, but like COVID and Animal Crossing are like tangibly linked. I'll never not think of COVID whenever I think of Animal Crossing, because they were like, that was what I spent my time doing during that March and April. Okay, let's go on to our next news story here. For those of you that haven't heard, Niantic has released a new simulation game. A new game. If you are a fan of Pokemon Go, then you should know Niantic. They are the behemoth developer of that game, and they're always trying to come up with something new, and it always fails. So we will see if this one fails as well, but this is a pet simulation game that's going to be their own IP, which is kind of unique. This is the first time Niantic, well, I guess not the first time, because they definitely did that like spy hunting one. Was that not their own IP? Maybe this is just like one where you actually have like critters instead of anything else. So maybe that's the thing. So it is known as Peridot. I think it's Peridot purely because the first one you get, I think, is named Dot. And so that's all I know about it. I haven't played this one. I probably won't play this one. I liked Tamagotchi. I was a fan of it, but this doesn't feel like it's going to do what it needs to do for me. I play Pokemon Go whenever I go on walks, and that's all that I do Pokemon Go for. And so I don't really need a replacement. That was my issue with Pikmin as well, is that I played the Pikmin walk game and I really enjoyed it, but then I was like, but I kind of miss my Pokemon Go, and I'm not catching up on all those things that I've worked for literal years at this point. So I don't know. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it actually takes off. I'm not putting any big bets on this one either. I have a feeling we'll probably hear about it in this one article, and then we'll never hear about it again. But hey, who knows? Maybe it'll do really, really well. What are your thoughts on this, Stain?
Yeah, I think it's going to fail. I don't know that there are any of these kinds of games that have come out post Pokemon Go that have longevity. You brought up the reason, the sunk cost fallacy that goes into a game like Pokemon Go. People have been playing it for a long time, and if you're into that sort of thing, you're going to continue to go back to that because you've got time invested into that, and you don't want to. I just don't see this having any kind of staying power because it doesn't connect to anything that I think people will really care about that much. I know for me, I was like, yeah, that's not for me. But I'm also not even really a big Pokemon Go fan. I was for a few months, and then it was what it was. But my wife really, really was into it. So maybe a person like her might find interest in this. But yeah, I don't think. I think it's gonna fall to the wayside fairly quickly.
What I think will, if this works, what will make it work is the intimacy factor of like you get one when you start, but then I think you don't get another one without paying for it. So it's not really a like Pokemon you're catching constantly, releasing, getting the candy, doing all that stuff. This one you like get a pet, and this is your pet, and then you take care of it. So it is more of that Tamagotchi-esque like vibe that they're trying to get behind. And if that works, then it'll work really well, and that'll be fun. But I just don't think it will. But I do like that they're at least trying to change up the formula a little bit. I did hear that in some of their beta testing, originally the like model was that you would raise your Peridot into the age of an adult, and then once it became an adult, you would like set it free into the wilderness. And they took that away because people got too sad. Whenever they release them into the wilderness, people were like, well, wait, I can't do this. I've taken care of this animal, and now you're making me give it away into the wilderness. And so I guess they couldn't let them do that. So now they're letting them, they like breed and they produce a baby, and then they stay, but you're not involved with them anymore.
Wow, talk about the social implications of that. They were like, oh, you can't handle being a parent, so we'll just make a game that'll let you live into your helicopter parent fantasies. Oh my goodness.
Yep. 100%. I think they might have even tried. Like, this would be something they would never say, right? This is board meeting behind the scenes of like, hey, my grandchildren have said they're never going to have babies, but they love their dog like more than anything in this world. And we need to recreate that feeling to get money out of them. And so this is totally that millennial urge to not have children, but to take care of something. And so you just adopt all the dogs. That's exactly what's happening here. And that's a baffling way to do it. And I might be just judging them more harshly than they deserve, but I could totally.
No, man, this is it. This is the game for people who call their pets children.
Mm-hmm. Which is definitely a real thing. It's a real millennial urge. And so I have a feeling there's something going on here. And that might be what they're trying to capitalize on. And we'll see if it takes or not.
Xando mentioned in the comments about the Pokemon Go clone with actual human basketball players. I was just talking before you get on here, Xando, that there's one out there still active where you go around collecting saints. It's called Follow JC Go. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But these games, man, they trip me out.
I'm pretty sure the basketball player one was like a month ago. Like, I don't think it was very long ago at all when that one like just came out and is already gone. Cam says, same way about Pokemon Go, only play it when we walk around or maybe out shopping. I feel like we'll be shocked to hear how much Peridot has made, and then it will be shut down because it isn't enough to sustain. Probably so. So we will see. Yeah, and then Xando also said, man, what if it was a literal virtual pet that you might randomly lose when you log in one day? Yeah, those were the true. I mean, I remember people freaking out about Tamagotchi stuff. Like they were upset whenever yours would die or whenever yours would, have something go wrong with it or get sick, and people would have these real parasocial attachments to these critters. So I was not expecting Peridot to be our segment we talked about the most today, but this has been a delightful conversation. We're going to move on to the next one, which is the WGA writer strike. So for those, we talked about this last week. If you want to go back and catch our twig from last week to learn a little bit more about this one. But what I actually want to talk about in regards to it is as the writer strike continues to go on, we're going to continue to see more and more shows announce delays and things going on, one of which we've had two pretty big ones to nerds that have already not bit the dust. They haven't been canceled altogether, but they've definitely been pushed. The big one for HBO fans is Severance. Isn't Severance HBO or is it Apple? It might be Apple. Either way, Severance has gotten a delay, which is a pretty big deal for those that are fans of that show, which definitely has a bit of irony to it in the kind of like bigwig capitalist argument that show is making. And then very hard for a nerd like me to hear, but appreciate from the Duffer's perspective, is that Stranger Things has also confirmed that it is going to be having a little bit of a delay, which almost that almost throws everything out of whack. I'll be very interested to see how this goes the longer that the strike goes on and if it continues to be delayed by the Duffers. Because for those of you that are Stranger Things fans, Stranger Things releases in July. Like, there's no other time for it to release. And so if it's pushed at all, theoretically, it would be pushed to the next year's July. So that means that every time it gets pushed, we're pushing it back another year. We'll see how that continues to go and how that continues to vibe. But especially since this is, I think this is their final season in their 5th season, they're not going to want to mess this one up. And they're definitely going to end up pushing it probably a whole year. Oh, did it come out in October? I thought they both released in July. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like July is an attachment that I have to Stranger Things for some reason. I feel like I always watched them in July. But who knows? I do know that they definitely had a Halloween theme to them as well, so maybe so. But we'd have to go back. Regardless, the fact that it's being pushed, not good news. What are your thoughts on this one, Stain?
Yeah, so obviously, I want these things to come out, the shows and all that, but I truly hope that we see more things get delayed because of this, because a protest without a disruption is pointless. And so the more of these things that start impacting more people, the more likely we are to get a satisfying resolution to it. So while I want these things to come out, I also support the WGA. And I want this to be done right. And the only way that's really going to happen is if people who aren't affected by it or don't feel affected by it start to feel the pinch.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I even know that we literally just saw the, what's his name? I'm trying to remember the theater. One of the theater owners, I think it was AMC, say, like, I don't see this as being disruptive for quite a while. And so even still, you're getting the bigwigs and the people that are in power not caring. And that's just evident of the deeper problem that continues to lie and the reason why these strikes are so important. I think our frustration on the end of the little guy, of the consumers of this media, is I obviously support the strike, but like, what can I do? I feel like that's my big issue whenever it comes to this is so out of our ball field because we're not writers. And so you just have to kind of continue to support people that that are writers. But it's not like, write your state representative or write your state representative. You just kind of, I don't know who to contact at Netflix to let them know that I think this is nonsense. I guess I can tweet at them. Maybe you can subtweet something like that. But it's definitely going to be a bit of a mess for the next little while. And I'm hopeful that it does disrupt in the way that it needs to disrupt. I'm hopeful that jobs are changed for the best and that we figure all of this out in a way that does as little harm to people's livelihoods as possible. At the end of the day, shows are just shows, and while we love them and we do enjoy the media that we consume, that's not an example of harm. The example of harm is instead in people's livelihoods and in their ability to sustain living, and able to earn the money that they need to support their families and to support their lives. And so that's obviously the bigger deal, and we just kind of have to handle it. But I am interested, especially for anybody that's listening to this or watching along, if you know a writer or if you are able to support them in an active way other than just kind of being okay. I'm always curious about how we can actually support and what we can actually do to promote social justice in that way, because I feel kind of powerless in this one as the person who really has no actual sway. Which people make arguments about all scenarios and how much power we actually have, but there's no representative for me to write to here. So I'm always curious as we continue to move this forward. Cam says AMC's perspective, anything they're getting soon would already be in post-production, so it wouldn't affect them for a couple years. Yeah, we shall see. We shall see how they continue to take it and how they continue to take it seriously. Okay. Let's move on to our last segment, which is a totally different weight after that one. But Pokemon Go Plus Plus, for those of you that haven't heard of that ridiculously named product, is going to be the latest iteration of the Pokemon Go Plus thing that they came out with where you could like catch Pokemon from your pocket or whatever. And since they're releasing Pokemon Sleep, they wanted to make a new one that also tracked your sleep. And so they've made Pokemon Go Plus Plus, and the pre-orders came out for it, I think yesterday, maybe the day before. I already have it ordered. I already have it pre-ordered because I am a shill and I love Pokemon. And so mine will be on its way on July 17th. If you would like to order this for yourself, then you should find this original site in our show notes and order it for yourself as well, because I will definitely be enjoying this product. Any thoughts, Stain? Are you going to be a big Pokemon Go Plus Plus supporter here?
Now, you know the answer to that.
I mean, I even have my Gengar and Haunter mug here, okay? I can't help myself. We have a whole stream called Pokemon Days. I can't do anything about this, folks. This is just my own problem. With that, that's going to wrap up our trending news headlines. Here, we're going to move on to the next segment of our show. If you want to contribute news, this is news from the Discord. If you want to contribute news, bit.ly/DearTwig, DEARTWIG, or just go use our Discord. I scroll through every single week and I find the biggest news stories that we're already not talking about and try and highlight them. So use our Discord, post news that you see, and maybe you'll be featured. Only one this week, and that is actually coming from Kung Fu Carl. Kung Fu Carl posted a excellent podcast interview with the Kind of Funny Xcast folks, interviewing Phil Spencer. And I feel like what I assume happened here is they had an interview set up with Phil months in advance. And it just so happened to come out like the interview was right as Redfall was releasing and failing. And so I think Phil was just in his feels, if you will. And he was just really emotional before this interview and brought a lot of that stress here. So that is something interesting to see. But this whole interview is one that's really kind of a tell-all of Phil feeling guilty and a little bit personally accepting responsibility for the failure that is Redfall, which is something that we don't often see from one of the big three's execs. And a reason that I kind of like Phil, because I think that he is pretty human and he typically tends to present a pretty human feel. But this was an instance, if you haven't listened to this interview, I highly recommend that you do, because this is one where he really kind of laid it on the table for the first time in a way that we haven't really heard, especially this brutally honest. Any thoughts on that, Stain?
No, I watched a little bit of it. I think I always appreciate when the corporate face of something is humanized. And so while I don't want to see anything fail, obviously, and I certainly don't want anybody feeling like it's like all on them, we want things to be as good as they can be. So I don't know. I think from a perspective of somebody who is under the gun a lot for leadership decisions, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for those who have to take the hits for mass failures, so I feel a little bit bad, but like in the end, if it makes the next thing better, then hopefully that'll be the case.
Yeah. Cam confirms that it says, yes, this was pre-planned and it was a coincidence. The timing-wise, they'd expected him to cancel, but he wanted to be there and tackle the questions. I think that's a stand-up thing to do. It was a really good interview. I think what was interesting to me in regards to what you're saying of that kind of like weird guilt feeling is that he also expressed some guilt in his own actions, and I thought that was important to touch on. And one in particular was that they announced that it would run at 60 even though they knew it would run at 30. And that was something that he said, yeah, we knew, and we said it anyway. And so that's important. That's important to own up to and important to acknowledge in this weird tech-obsessed genre of the market, where we really do care about specs like that for some reason. I don't personally, but gamers care about specs like that. And so to fudge the numbers and to mislead a little bit in that way is a tough thing to do and an important thing to own up to. And I hope they won't do it anymore. Stop doing it, because it doesn't work. It never works. It never pans out well. I mean, I have yet to see a single game, Cyberpunk, any of those games that like make these bold promises and then don't live up to them, and then it works out well for. I mean, they're doing fine, of course, in the end, but like that part just is controversy. So I guess it's churning the controversial meal in a sense of like progressing that news upward and onward. But I just don't see the merit in it, and I hope that they'll stop. But I appreciated that he at least expressed that as a regret. That's good. That's good news. Okay. We're going to move out of more heavy news. Again, that is our only news that was submitted this week, except for Xando, who just dropped over in the chat. We're a week away from the open beta for Street Fighter 6. You nerds online. Absolutely. Xando is our resident Street Fighter fan, and we'll definitely be playing that. And so looking forward to hearing his takeaways. If you ever want to submit news, either post on the Discord or send them straight to me, bit.ly/DearTwig, and we'll make sure that they get featured on the show. With that, we're going to move to everybody's favorite segment of the show. At this point in nerd history. There we go. Okay. So these are all of the things that happened. These are all the things that happened today throughout time and space. Not many, actually. It was kind of surprising. I don't know what the deal is with May 11th, but there's not a lot of things that happened on May 11th. We had a pretty limited run, so it's up to you. I don't know why I included that under games. There's one that definitely should not be released under games at the very top there. Do you want to take games or do you want to take movies?
I'll take the games, I guess.
Okay.
So we've got
the first one. We'll just say is not a game.
Yeah, it's not a game, but we'll say it anyway because it's there. 2020 Twitter added fact checking, which I can say, yeah, wow, that's really amplified the platform because everything on there is true.
I do feel like I remember that though. You would think it would have been in response. I think there was definitely like a part of it that was political, but it was definitely very heavy with COVID, and that was the misinformation scene there, which I guess you could argue is political. But regardless, that was what it was more centered around than anything regarding the election. Maybe a better word.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, you're right. All the COVID stuff at that time. I do remember it. Now that you say it, that I remember it. 2013, Find the Invisible Cow was released. I had never heard of this.
Do you know what that is?
No, I don't know.
Do you know now? Have you looked it up?
No, I didn't.
Oh my goodness! I need to know who in the chat knows what Find the
Invisible
Cow is. This is a famous website, okay? And it used to be, it was just a stupid Newgrounds-esque website that you would go to, and it's just this blank computer screen. And your goal is to move your mouse over the screen and to try and find the invisible cow. As soon as you find it, it will move, and then you click, and then it moves, and you find a new invisible cow. It's the dumbest thing ever, but this was just like one of those early, it wasn't even early. I mean, 2013, that's not even that early. But it was a weird generational shift in like one of the last big internet memes of that era that I remember at least. So Find the Invisible Cow, hilarious, 2013.
The explanation just reaffirms to me that we are just like rats in a maze.
100%. It was very much just a easy internet game.
Then finally in 2004, we announced and then named Revolution.
Well, it was named Revolution at that time, so that was the name of the project.
So we was announced. It was then named Revolution before that. Okay, got it. That read weird. Okay, I didn't know that it had a name before we, but for real, there was a meeting with people who were like, "Wait, we've got this name, Revolution. I've got a better idea."
Yep.
Let's call it
just like whenever the PS5, was it the PS5 that was known as Scarlet? I feel like that's right. And so, or maybe it was the Xbox S or whatever. One of them was known as Scarlet at one point. And so it's just like that, where they all get these weird like keywords that almost end up being cooler than the actual name whenever they come out.
Yeah, but at least with like PlayStation, they're iterating it by number, right? So it makes sense that it would always be like the PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation 6 or whatever. But with Wii, that's not, what is that even like? That doesn't.
Oh, that's fun.
It's connected to nothing.
Xando dropped a knowledge fact there in the chat. They were so close to sticking with the name Revolution. The product numbers on the back of early Wii games start with RVL. That's super fascinating. So they wanted it. It was like, you know, some excitable person that fought for it really hard to make it the Wii. That's hilarious. GameCube was known as Project Dolphin, and early GameCube games have Dolphin or DOL in their product numbers. Hence why the Dolphin is the emulator if you want to run GameCube games. So you know, Scarlet was indeed Xbox. I knew it was something like that. I remembered something along those lines. Okay, we're going to move into, at this point in history, movies. Again, not too many. The first one that's sort of video game related in a way, I don't know if you enjoyed this movie or not. It was kind of on the fence for me. Enjoyable enough. Was the Angry Birds movie back in 2016. 2012, the movie iteration of Dark Shadows, which I think people thought was really going to go somewhere, and then it never really did. And then in 2007, 28 weeks later, was dropped on May 11th. And then an iconic film to me, maybe not to others out there, but to at least to my millennial heart, A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger is just one of those iconic films, and this was released on May 11th in 2001. With that has been At This Point in Nerd History. Okay. We're going to move now into upcoming releases, things coming out in the next couple days, in the next week or so. And for this one, we'll just go back and forth, Stain. So we'll talk about what's coming out in the next week. I'll kick us off with games. We're going to start with games coming out in the next week. Coming out today, the 11th, is Another Fisherman's Tale.
Yeah, Death or Treat.
Fuga Melodies of Steel 2.
What is
Good
this?
luck.
Mechabellum? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yep. And then the last thing coming out on May the 11th is TT Isle of Man, Ride on the Edge 3. A too long title.
Yeah. It's coming out tomorrow. Baby Storm.
Which is hilarious if you haven't looked up Baby Storm. It reminds me of that game, Who's Your Daddy, where you were the baby and one person was the dad and you tried to cause turmoil. That's the way I'm going to put that. And the dad had to stop you from causing that turmoil. And then also, of course, the big title coming out tomorrow is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yep. Coming out on the 16th, Humanity.
Also on the 16th, Super Bunny Man.
That sounds like it'd be interesting.
It's hilarious.
On the 17th, didn't know this was a thing, but I would actually, I look forward to playing this. Starship Troopers Extermination.
And then also on 17th, another game maybe for Stained is WrestleQuest. So there you go. Two games in your particular wheelhouse there. We're going to move now into movies. Movies coming out in the next week. And Stained, I'll let you kick this one off. Coming out tomorrow.
All right. Coming out on the 12th, we have Blackberry.
All of these are actually coming out on the 12th. I don't know why I even said that. All these coming out tomorrow, Friday, typical movie day. Crater.
Yep. Fool's Paradise.
Hypnotic.
Knights of the Zodiac, which sounds like a great combination.
That is going to be so
Star Wars
bad.
and serial killing.
It is going to be so bad, but that is a Saint Seiya manga adaptation that's being put in. So it's like a manga and anime that's being done live action, but it does not look like it's going to be done well. And then Oregon Trail, which is also an adaptation of the video game, as I understand it. I don't know if they stayed too true to the actual source material, but then again, it's kind of a meme game anyway.
Oh, it was because the way you have it typed in the notes, it says Oregon, Organ. Yes. I was like, what kind of weird movie is that gonna be?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail
but
is
that's
the
not the
zombie
game.
Remake of Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail.
Oh,
so it is a meme. It is a meme and a parody of itself. And so they parodied Oregon Trail with Oregon Trail, and now they're making a movie of that parody.
So, all right, I'm both extremely upset and fascinated at the same time.
I think Oregon Trail was actually released in theaters about a month ago. This is it being released on it was limited theaters, and this is actually releasing to streaming. So if you're interested in watching Oregon Trail, then you should check it out because it's probably pretty good. I heard decent things about it. Decent things.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yes. St. Bear says Baby Storm sounds like an episode of Invader Zim. Tears of the Kingdom is indeed coming out tomorrow. Zando says Blackberry by the guys who brought you the Wii Shop Wednesday track. And then St. Bear, Oregon Trail, and Oregon disassembled and made into a trail. I think it's a zombie movie. I don't know if it's going to be a zombie movie. The game was very much zombie. So maybe there's an element to that. But it was kind of like a horror parody of the Oregon Trail.
Got it.
So let us know in the
that.
comments what you're excited for and what you're looking forward to out of that list. Did I interrupt you? What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just saying I had not known that was a thing, but now I have to go check it out.
Yeah, I'm very weirded out, first off, by our first movie, Blackberry, because I don't understand what's going on right now, and I'm feeling very old. There are all these docudramas being made on things that are not old, or at least not to me. They're not supposed to be old. They make me feel ancient because we had Tetris, we've had Blackberry, we've had the Air Jordan movie. I think it was just called Air. Wasn't it called Air? I can't remember. So we had an Air Jordan movie. Like, there have just been all these movies coming out that are making me feel rather ancient. And these are things that I grew up with. And so I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm not happy about it. With that.
Yeah, well, welcome to being older.
Yes, I guess so. I'm very young. I'm a spring chicken. I'm far too young to feel old. Now we're going to move into our final segment of the show, which is Meme of the Week. Our Meme of the Week this week is actually submitted by Sneaky Pigs. If you would like to be chosen as our Meme of the Week winner, then you can post on our Memes and Goofs channel on our Discord, !Discord in the chat if you want to join that. And the one that typically gets the most reactions is the one that I pick, but sometimes I just hand select them because I really like them. Case in point, this week's with the writer's strike, somebody put a little Tumblr post and said, how bad could a writer's strike make things? Well, buddy, let me tell you about a cautionary tale called Heroes. And that was hashtag too relatable for me because I loved Heroes like most of us nerds probably did, and we remember just how poorly it went. So big bummer with that one, but I thought it was a pretty good meme, pretty good goof and a gaff and a laugh, and it brought me back to the world of Heroes. So with that, this has been the Week in Geek. We're going to wrap up, but before we do our wrap up, I'm going to throw it over to Stained. Stained, feel free to do any plugs, shout outs, let us know what you're doing, where you're at, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to finally say in a very official way that I am soft launched digital church plant up here in the East Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church. The website is live, if a little janky. Perispecs is going to be helping me out with that, but it's gobe.church. And we have a Discord and a YouTube and all that stuff. You can find all of that at the website. But gobe.church, it's a social justice oriented, inclusive UMC digital first platform. So I'm really excited about that. And you go check that out. It's not for nerds, geeks, and gamers, but it is definitely for digital natives. So
there we go. Rock on. Well, thank you for your time, Stain. We appreciate you being here, folks. This is Twig, the Weekend Geek, our weekly geekly news show that we do live here on Twitch every single Thursday on our stream, twitch.tv/checkpointchurch. If you're listening now on YouTube and the podcast, first off, everybody say hi, YouTube, in the chat. This was a live show that we would love for you to have been a part of. You can catch us every single week here on this channel. And we believe three things to be true about every single one of you out there, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're listening to the podcast, whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, go to church, don't go to church, none of those things change these three things that we believe to be true about every single one of you out there. Number one, we believe that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number two, we love you. We want community with you. That's what we're doing here on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. And number three, we believe that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better place. Why? Because you are in it. Folks, with that, until the next time that we see ya, be well. Bye-bye.